Why do some of the wealthiest people in Denmark drive used hatchbacks and wear the same jacket for 10 years? And how is that low-key attitude actually making them richer over time? Today we're diving into a cultural phenomenon that's as understated as it is powerful. How Danes manage to build serious wealth while sidestepping the flashy lifestyle that often drains wallets in other countries. You're going to learn the mindset behind Denmark's stealth wealth approach, how cultural values shape money habits, the real-world financial benefits of not showing off, and how you can apply these principles no matter where you live. We're also going to break down what the science actually says about money and happiness, and how the Danish way of thinking might just be the antidote to financial stress. I'm Elle. I did my PhD in Denmark and lived there for 5 years. It taught me things no guidebook ever could. I also run another channel where I talk about AI, machine learning, and the weird future that we're all building. So if you're curious about that side of things, check it out too. The link is in the description. Okay, let's start with something that most outsiders have never heard of, the Janteloven. The Janteloven, or the Law of Jante, is a cultural code in Denmark and across Scandinavia that can be summed up like this: you're not better than anyone else, and no one is better than you. At first glance, it sounds a bit oppressive, but in practice, it creates a society where humility is king and flashiness is suspect. Flaunting wealth that's seen as insecure or even distasteful, which means the pressure to keep up just doesn't exist in the same way that it does in many other places. There's no suburban arms race of who has the newest car, the bigger grill, the flashiest kitchen remodel. In Denmark, if you showed up to a dinner party bragging about your new Rolex, you might get a few polite smiles, but under the surface, people are thinking, why are you trying so hard? And the thing is, without the social pressure to appear wealthy, people are freer to actually become wealthy. Because you're not spending their money to signal status. Instead, they're investing, saving, and living below their means. Let me tell you about my neighbor, Søren. Søren was in his late 20s, worked in IT, and lived with his family in a modest red brick house with an unkempt garden and a 12-year-old bicycle. The guy looked like your average middle-class dad. What I didn't realize until much later was that Søren was a multimillionaire, not because he built a startup or inherited a fortune. He just never spent money trying to impress anyone. He invested steadily, lived simply, and took his family on budget-conscious vacation to rural France instead of 5-star resorts. His wealth built quietly over time, compounding in the background. And this story isn't unique in Denmark. In fact, a 2023 study showed that Danes are among the top savers in Europe, and the average household net worth is one of the highest in the world. But you'd never guess it walking down a Copenhagen street. Because the guy biking to work in a weatherproof shell jacket, he might own more assets than somebody driving a Tesla in Los Angeles. Let's talk about something that I like to call the psychology of enough. The wild thing is that research consistently shows that after a certain income threshold, about $75,000 to $100,000 in many developed countries, more money doesn't make people significantly happier. It's one of those facts that we hear, nod at, and then forget as soon as the new shiny thing shows up in our Instagram feed. But in Denmark, this idea isn't just a statistic. It's a deeply internalized way of life. It's almost cultural muscle memory. Rather than chasing more just because they can, Danes tend to focus on something far less flashy and more sustainable. Enough. Now, I get it, enough sounds like settling a little bit, like giving up on ambition, but it's actually the opposite. The Danish approach reframes the entire goal of wealth. Instead of wealth being about pushing further up the ladder, it's about securing a solid, meaningful foundation. Once basic needs are covered, like housing, healthcare, and foods, the question isn't how can I get more, it becomes what actually adds value to my life. That answer for many Danes looks like time with your family, having dinner together every evening, taking real vacations without checking email, and choosing jobs that leave space for parenthood rather than making it harder. Time in nature, walks in the forest, weekend cabin trips, cold swims in the sea, even urban green spaces that aren't just decorative but essential. It looks like work-life balance. The classic Danish 37-hour work week isn't about laziness, it's about optimizing for well-being and not burnout. It looks like security. Not splurging, Danes are more likely to save for the long term, pay off their mortgages early, and ensure they have a cushion rather than living paycheck to paycheck. even if the paycheck is a big one. This is not about deprivation. No one is living like monks in minimalist bunkers. It's about intentionality. Danes aren't using money to escape their lives, but they're using money to support a life they already enjoy. Here's a practical example. Instead of dropping thousands on a flashy watch or designer sneakers, a Danish couple might spend that same money on a longer parental leave so that they can both stay at home with their newborn. Or they can invest in a high-quality stroller that lasts through multiple kids. Or they'll buy organic food not to be trendy, but because they value health and sustainability. The money isn't disappearing, it's being redirected, not towards public validation, but toward quiet upgrades that make life richer from the inside out. This reallocation of wealth isn't just financially smart, but also emotionally intelligent. It builds a life where joy isn't delayed until retirement or until some financial milestone is hit. It's felt in the day-to-day, the small things, the now. And ironically, that's the kind of contentment most people spend their whole lives chasing. The Danes are just quietly living it. Now let's talk about stuff, physical stuff. Denmark is a country where people embrace minimalist living, not as a trend, but as a way of life. Homes are simple, functional, and filled with objects that are either useful or meaningful, and often both. You don't see McMansions or oversized walk-in closets here. You see IKEA stuff. You see bikes instead of SUVs. You see people wearing the same coat season after season, not because they can't afford more, but because it still works and they genuinely like it. This kind of restrained consumerism is a wealth-building machine in disguise. By owning fewer things and obsessing less over new things, Danes keep their expectations low, reduce waste, and avoid the debt cycle that traps so many in other parts of the world. And it turns out that not obsessing over stuff actually makes people happier. Studies from the Happiness Research Institute in Copenhagen back this up. Fewer possessions equals less stress equals more joy. Quick break. If this one is hitting home, make sure to like this video and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you thoughtful research content like this. I invite you to also take my free quiz called What Type of Dane Are You? It's fun, quick, and might just reveal more about how you see status, money, and lifestyle that you would expect. The link is down in the description, and if you want to go one step further in supporting the channel, you could buy me a coffee. Even a small monthly amount goes a very long way to keeping this whole project running. Let's zoom out for a second. One of the key reasons Danes don't feel the need to show off wealth is because income inequality is relatively low. CEOs don't make 300 times what their workers do, and the social structure is intentionally flat. This leads to fewer status anxiety loops. When there's not a massive visible gap between us and them, people don't feel the pressure to close it with credit cards and consumer debt. Because in Denmark, the social benefits already give everyone a base level of dignity. Free healthcare, free university, paid parental leave, and a strong social safety net. So wealth isn't about protection from disaster, it's about freedom to choose. This shifts the motivation behind money entirely. People aren't hoarding wealth because they're scared, they're calmly building it because they can. So how can you adopt the Danish approach to wealth wherever you are? Here's the mindset shift essentially. Stop thinking about money as something to show and start thinking about it as something to use. Here are some practical ways to live like a rich Dane. Buy fewer but better things. Prioritize durability over trendiness. Drive your car into the ground. You don't need to upgrade every 3 years. You're fine. Choose experiences over stuff. The Danes love hygge for a reason. Avoid lifestyle creep. When your income increases, don't automatically spend more. Invest steadily, not to impress, but to create options. Practice gratitude for enough. That's real wealth. These aren't radical steps, but they compound. Over years, they lead to financial independence, less stress, and a life that's more about contentment than chasing. And hey, if people underestimate your net worth because you wear Uniqlo and ride a bike, let them. That's the point. The world is essentially in a cultural moment where people are starting to rebel against overconsumption. Minimalism, sustainability, financial independence, it's all connected together. And Denmark has been quietly modeling this for decades. Flashy is out, subtle is in. And in an economy that rewards long-term thinking, the Danish model might just be the smartest way to build wealth in the modern world. It's about redefining what success looks like. Because maybe, just maybe, the richest person in the room is the one who doesn't feel the need to prove it. If this made you think about your relationship with money, status, or even success, consider subscribing for more insights like this. We explore the overlooked wisdom in everyday cultures, from Nordic simplicity to Eastern resilience and everything in between. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Skål!